I am the eldest daughter of 3 kids.
I've got one younger brother.
The eldest of 2.
I have 5 imaginary siblings.
I'm the spoiled brat. I'm the youngest. And I'm also a bit hungover today. I'm just pointing that out, guys.
There's a whole bigger conversation around women and unpaid labour and like emotional labour that goes into the household, domestically, emotionally. When you take it to the siblings dynamic, especially in an ethnic or an Asian household, women to take on the household responsibilities is just a given. It's not shared across the men.
Being the youngest, they don't never take me serious as a result. So I remember I used to get angry about things and like kick up a stink about it. And they just look at me and they'll literally laugh at my face. So I pretended to run away from home.
How far did you get?
Went into the garage.
You didn't even remember you went to the garage.
I stayed there for hours, locked myself in the garage, and there was cockroaches everywhere. I'm pretty sure there's something dead in there, and I stayed there for hours in the dark.
When I was younger, I definitely wanted siblings.
If you had to adopt a sibling, who are you taking?
Oh man,
None of us.
so many great choices.
Before we get started on today's episode, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded, the land of the Darug people. We would like to acknowledge and pay respects to our elders past and present and the next generation coming through. Now, onto today's episode.
Alright, I thought it'd be good to start if we go around the room and just share how many siblings you have, what the age gap is, and who you are in that order.
You want to go first?
I have 5 imaginary siblings. I have no siblings, only child.
I am the eldest daughter of 3 kids. My sister is about 20 and my brother, he's year 11. I think he's 15, 16?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, here.
And you're 24, so it's an 8-year
I'm
gap
24.
between
Yep.
the 3 of you.
Filling in the lines.
Quick maths.
I am 34. I've got one younger brother who is 30, so a 4-year age gap.
It's Tony 30.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
turning 30 at the end of this year.
Whoa.
He's 93.
Holy
Little baby.
Ooh.
So I got 2 older brothers. I'm 34 this year, and my brothers are 3 years apart. So one's 37 and the other's 40. Oh my. He's 40 now. Oh my god. Yeah, he's wiser now.
Wasn't wise before.
And I'm the spoiled brat. I'm the youngest. And I'm also a bit hungover today. I'm just pointing that out, guys.
What else is new?
I'm the eldest of 2. I'm 29. My brother is also 29, and there's a 55-second difference between us.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're twin. You actually, I remember seeing the photo. You guys don't look alike.
We're fraternal twins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I know you put a call out on Instagram, Viv,
Yep.
to ask our audience about their relationship with their siblings. What did you hear back from the polls that you put out?
Yeah, so I put out a few questions around what our audience's experience has been like, either as the eldest, the middle child, or the youngest. I didn't put one out for only children, but I probably should have.
We need representation,
Yeah.
man.
So let's start with the youngest child experience.
That's probably all from me, yeah.
There weren't that many responses for youngest child.
Okay.
Middle child. A common one was about being forgotten and usually being the last to get, the pieces of fruit, the biggest pieces of fruit, or when you're going out to dinner and you get lobster or like seafood, or you get the dish first, like the biggest piece of meat usually goes to the eldest or the youngest, but then the middle child usually gets forgotten.
So, I just didn't. I'm the youngest, so I didn't even realise. I'm bad. I'm a bad brother.
Do you think your brother, is in John?
I don't know. I don't even notice it. So, yeah, maybe.
Now you're feeling really bad.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. He probably doesn't. Yeah. He's always the forgotten guy. But now he's the most loved.
Oh.
Out of our brothers.
That's
I think it
nice.
took a while for him to get there, but
Oh. Poor guy.
Why?
I'll explain later.
Okay, so we had a lot of responses for the eldest child. A lot of people said something around, being the main carer for the family, took grandparents and extended family to appointments, so like doctor's appointments or whatever that might be. As the eldest child, it's the hardest on expectation and responsibility. Independence came easily for them. Pressure of being the one that's responsible for the younger siblings, their wins and fails. A+ grades or you're a total up. Parents a lot stricter with them as the eldest rather than the youngest, and when they mess up, the youngest siblings mess up, you usually get blamed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. What else was there? I'm the eldest daughter of an eldest daughter, mum. Enough said, ...
My brain isn't thinking right. What was that again?
So the child that submitted the response was the eldest daughter of the eldest daughter. Her mum is the eldest daughter of the family as well.
Oh, yes. I got it now. That makes sense.
You sure?
What's the point of that, though? What's the... I don't understand.
I was just imagining it's just got like a monkey like clapping the symbol. It doesn't work. It doesn't work this morning.
She pointed out, like, I don't get it.
She was saying like enough said because like I'm assuming it's a matriarchy.
But, look, I'm just going to point out, we didn't have any, like, sisters.
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
Yeah.
So we can get into it, but like being the eldest, eldest daughter, there's a lot of responsibility domestically and then within the household. And so I think what she's saying is because her mum went through that and now she's also the eldest daughter, there's a lot of either trauma or female power or a lot of baggage that comes with it.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I can understand that now. Yeah, it took me a while.
Yeah, and then I also asked any other sibling thoughts, and someone did submit something saying, I think being the only female sibling also holds heavy duty in the Asian household. Yeah.
As in like the only daughter.
Of maybe sons
Of
as
boys.
well, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
So maybe not necessarily eldest, but could also just be the only female in the mix. Great. Well, sounds like there's a big consensus on what the experience is like being the eldest.
Well, we were at a friend/client's office and we were talking about this, right? Where this guy was talking about like having kids or trying to have kids, and everyone else in the room had kids. Everyone else was actually older than us, I reckon. They were in their 40s, and one guy was saying what it's like having sons and daughters, and the whole thing was like, and everyone seemed to agree in the room. They were like, daughters live closer to family and they take, I think that's what it was.
They end up like looking after.
They end up looking after it, whereas the sons just either like do whatever or they have their own
They have a
families.
free spirit and they usually go off and do that
Yeah.
thing. They don't care about the family as much, apparently. I don't believe that at all because I thought,
As a generalization.
yeah, that generalization is pretty out there because I usually thought like as a son, like you would look after the family, and that's because I'm full, like I only got brothers, so that's how I see it.
Well, I think they said financially, the sons or the older son usually is the one who looks after things financially. Obviously not the case in your case, but for their generalization, they're saying that the sons do it from a financial standpoint. The daughters are like the caretaker, like the physical, take him to the doctors,
So when
look after him.
get older, they will look after you more.
Yeah, correct.
But isn't that a gendered thing across the board? Because it's not just like a sibling thing that women, generally speaking, take the emotional burden more than males do.
Yeah, and that's why they were saying they don't mind having a daughter, but because we were having a talk about would we want a daughter
Gender
first,
preference, yeah.
or would we want a male first, and I was like, I don't really care. Most of them they were like, honestly, they said it doesn't really matter too, but just they wanted to go through the pros.
But they were observing basically, or they were talking about their own being siblings themselves in that situation.
Well,
what they're
as the only woman on the panel, how does that sit with you?
Like to your point, I think there's a whole bigger conversation around women and unpaid labor and like emotional labor that goes into the household domestically, emotionally, whatever it might be. And then when you take it to like the siblings dynamic, I think especially in an ethnic or an Asian household, the responsibility of women to take on the household responsibilities is just a given. It's not something that is shared across the men or the males. So like, you know, typically like Asian households favor men or males and sons because they can bring in the money, they can do certain things for the household, whereas females, they aren't seen as like the career driven individual in the household, and therefore then automatically the responsibilities of the household become theirs. And I think being in that household as well and seeing how my mum is, I've also taken that on as the eldest child and the eldest daughter, and so therefore a lot of household labor, domestic, emotional, mental, all of that comes to me first, and then my siblings are kind of shielded from it. I know that also my brother is the youngest and he is also the son, and not a lot of stuff falls on him and he gets away with a lot of stuff.
So 2 questions to follow up from that. One, is your mum, coming from the generation that she's a part of, conscious of that difference between gendered responsibility in a household? Is that something she is conscious of, or is it kind of ingrained in her that those are the values that they grew up with and it's just an expectation and that's just how life is? And the second question, all of the things that you spoke to, is that something you speak to your sister about, being conscious of you both having different expectations to your brother?
Two
Good
loaded
luck.
questions. Yeah. To start off with, I think it's an interesting dynamic because my mum she's the youngest in her family of, I think, 4 or 5 siblings, whereas my dad is the eldest son of all of his siblings. So my dad has taken on a financial responsibility, and he's also taken a lot of different responsibilities on for his household, but he may not see what my perspective looks like as the female in the household, as the eldest daughter. Whereas my mum might not see what I go through as the eldest daughter because she was the youngest and she didn't have to take on a lot of household responsibilities. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of stuff falls on me that she might think is very normal for me to take on as the eldest sister, but she doesn't realize what that experience feels like having to take on.
She hasn't been through it herself.
Yes, and she can easily pass it on to me because I can take responsibility in the household.
And like you said, your dad's projecting what it means to be an elder sibling without factoring in the gendered part of it because of his experience.
Yeah, and then to that point also, my parents are from 2 different generations themselves. Like there's a big age gap between them. So my dad is from more of a traditional Chinese household, whereas my mum is from more of a progressive, slightly westernized because she grew up in Hong Kong household. And so therefore the family dynamics are quite different. What was your second question?
Whether you speak to your sister about it.
So as the eldest daughter as well, I think I've also subconsciously and now realized more consciously that I've taken on the responsibility of the emotional burden because I've shielded my siblings from that. And I've only just started having conversations with my sister about it because she's an adult now. But with my brother, I'm not starting those conversations until he finishes like high school, so he doesn't have to take on that burden.
And how did your sister receive that?
I think she's like mature enough now. I've been having more conversations with my parents to share the load with my sister and not to treat her like a child because she's 20 now. Like she can. So I'll give you a story. Like last night, my dad needed me to call NRMA because of a car incident that he had. And automatically it comes to me, right? And I was like to them, you know that you can ask Reiko now because she's an adult. And so my mum was like, yeah, but she doesn't know how to do it. And I looked her dead in the eyes and I was like, she's 20 years old now. She's not a child. Wow. She can figure it out. She has to figure it out. What happens if she needs to claim insurance or something? And so I sat by my sister's side. I knew that she could do it. Like she's fully capable.
And she was happy to do it.
She was happy to do it. My siblings are happy to do it. It's just that my parents automatically don't share that responsibility. So when I came back from Vietnam recently, the first thing my mum said to me the moment she saw me, after she gave me a hug and everything, she's like, by the way, while you were away, there were like 3 things that happened. I need you to sort them out. Spoke to my sister after I got home and my sister was like, I had no idea this was happening. Like I would have easily called whoever you needed me to call while you're away.
Yeah, wow.
So I think automatically they're just so used to everything falling on me. But to your point, yes, I've been speaking to my sister about it and she's received it fine. My brother is a conversation that I'll have later on.
It's great that you're starting that conversation with your parents and your siblings as well. I guess, Davie, your experience being the youngest, how does hearing what Viv say kind of resonate with what your eldest brother would have?
I thought like she was having a very good conversation. I was actually going to walk out the door and I was happy to leave her to talk. But no, when I was listening, I was actually like, I thought about my relationship with my brother. And I guess my brother is older and he's 40 right now. So when I was young, he's like 6 years older than me. And he didn't have the understanding of talking to me about this stuff. And he never did. And I think that caused trauma on him. And as a result, like he kind of like, when he came back from Europe, he went to Europe and he was still shouldering the burden of looking after mum and dad and dealing with all that stuff. So he kind of escaped to Europe, but still financially looked after my parents.
So he sent money back?
Yeah, still sent money back. And then he was kind of going through all that, the problems of like the eldest child, looking after the family and all that stuff his whole life. Then when he came back, he was very depressed about this. And when he came back, I was like looking forward to seeing the guy because that guy, I felt like he was my parent or my dad at one point. Like I feel like he's like my dad. And then I saw him and I was like, man, you majorly like you. And I feel like you can't even talk to me about this stuff anymore because I felt like he held everything in and he was shouldering the whole burden of the parents and the family and being the dad or mum in the situation, and always looking after mum and dad as well as looking after us kids or us brothers. So him not talking about it, I think now has traumatized him a lot. And as a result, the relationship he has with the family is very different. He feels like, you know, what if I didn't help out? Like I would be in such a better place. So he kind of like...
Oh, is he resentment?
Yeah, I think there is. And he doesn't hate us or anything like that, but he feels like resentment at himself and probably at the situation. And so he's always looking at things negatively. Yeah, compared to like how he used to look at things.
So what did you notice? Because you said you noticed, you're like, dude, you're like really f***ed up right now. Like, what was he saying or doing?
Like he was very negative about everything. So
he's
he
reacting really negatively.
Yeah, and he also was like living at our house. He had his own room. We had a granny flat at the back, but he wasn't happy. He was just like, he hated being there. And then hearing my parents talk and asking him to do things, and also the situation like of how they were managing their finances. He just hated everything about it. He was just like, why do we have to do this again? Why do I have to come back to this place and still be the same thing as what it was?
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed yet. And he's like, man, like, and then he compared it to his friends and what they were going through. And that, like, his parents are far more well off because of, he didn't have to look after the parents. And his mental well-being, he felt like, man, I can't believe I'm still like doing phone calls for my parents. And I can't believe I'm still helping them do like stuff that they not doing right in terms of finances. And they just felt like, yeah, far out. Like he hated everything about it. And then he started like trying to explain things to my parents, and then my parents would tell him off or not listen to him. And he's like, oh man, I have to still go through this. And he never talked to me about it, but I could understand because I'm older now. And I saw, like, I lived with my parents when my brother was not there. And I went through it as well with my middle...
Just both the brothers moved out?
Yeah. Well, no, my second oldest brother was there too. So we were kind of going, helping my parents while my oldest brother was gone in Europe for a few years. So we kind of realized what was going on. It was like, well, there's a lot of mental... What do you call it? The word? Mental...
Load.
Yeah, burden that my oldest brother was going through. So we felt the same. And when we came back and we saw him, we were like, holy shit. This is the result of many years of mental burden that he had to go through. And I was like, oh man, I really wish he just talked about it to us, because we could have shouldered it with him.
What did you change about your behavior once you realized this about your brother?
Yeah, I think like at that point in time, I used to treat him as like the oldest brother, like the person I looked up to him. He was my mentor. But for me, then I was like, man, I can't see him like that always, because that's going to make him feel like he needs to have that burden again. So I changed the way I felt, and I was like, look, can I look after the family? And I like will financially look after the family as much as I can. I told my oldest brothers, both of them, to like, don't feel like you guys need to burden yourselves and look after this family anymore, in terms of like mentally and physically with mum and dad. I said, I'm happy for you guys to all move out and to live your own life, and I'll be there to look after mum and dad. I said I want to actually change and be better. Like, I don't want to be I didn't physically say this, I didn't want to be the youngest child and spoiled brat anymore. I just said, go do your thing, guys. Go look after your mental health. And I think that's important right now. And we never used to talk about that stuff. And when he came back and I saw him going through the things he went through a lot of things. Like, it was also when his friend passed away unexpectedly, he also went through a lot too. So he was like, man, I don't want to live this life anymore. That us Asian immigrant families, like the oldest child, has to look after our parents anymore. So he got very majorly depressed, and I was like, I'm so clueless all the time about things. I actually need to like stand up and talk to my parents and try to reason with them, rather than just getting annoyed as a spoiled brat as I do, and then just like shut the door and stay in my room, which is a lot of the younger siblings do, right? They just do their own thing. They care about their own selfishness and all the things they want to do, which is play games and all that stuff, and we don't think about the family finances, family burden, all that stuff. So I think that made me change a lot.
It's really cool because I think all of us know Davie's relationship with his brothers, just being friends of Davie's, and like hearing about everything that they've gone through and where they are now. It's cool that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like this chapter of your life is the closest that the three of you as brothers have been. You guys seem just like one coherent unit. And to have gone through everything that you've gone through, feeling all of that and then rebuilding together, it's really wholesome to see. If I was to kind of flip it, Noel, from your point of view, you have a very different perspective where it's just you and your mum, right? Growing up, when you see your friends having siblings and the kind of bonds that they have, and how you're hearing kind of all these stories about the challenges that come with having siblings, how does all that sit with you?
I think when I was younger, I definitely wanted siblings. I think it was very lonely. Like my mum was working all the time, so I was just like, had to play by myself and whatever. And I was home alone a lot, unsupervised, and was like raised by television. Like that was my childhood. So yeah, I always wanted siblings, and a lot of my friends that had siblings, I kind of envied them because they were like, at least you got to go and play soccer with your friends and with your brother on the weekend, and you guys could do sports together, so like you wouldn't be like picked on and little things like that. So yeah, I definitely wanted siblings. Like my best friends growing up were twins as well. So, they were very close, and, just seeing their relationship and them kind of, being in the same grade, being able to do everything together with another person that was like identical to you. Like I envy that so much. But yeah, as I got older, I realized that I'm also like very privileged in a way that I don't have to like, I don't have to fight with someone for the affections of my parents. I don't have to shoulder the burden as an eldest child. I don't have to kind of navigate a really complex relationship with siblings. With someone that, you kind of don't really have a choice to be in a family with, and you just kind of have to make it work, right? So yeah, like but I also think I value that relationship. Like I think I see Davie with spending time with Davie and his brothers, and you guys, and hearing stories from you guys. I think it's a very enriching experience as well, because I think even though you have different ways to navigate your relationship with your parents, I think just having that support network and being able to take turns, like Davie said, being the youngest, having that privilege, and then being able to mature and take over and allowing your brothers to have a bit of relief. Yeah, I think that's really kind of wholesome, and it's great, because I think it's kind of shit to say, but like as your parents get older, because it is a responsibility that as most Asians like you'll have to face. And I think being able to shoulder that instead of taking it entirely on yourself is something that I also wish I had. Because now I'm facing that where like my mom's getting older, she's approaching retirement age, and I'm like, I have to seriously think about how I'm going to look after her.
There's no other option.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Yeah, like so I can't fluff around anymore, and I'm like, I really need to like get things sorted for us.
It's crazy, because whereas my family, we've got three brothers. I got the oldest brother who, no, actually, I don't want to start with him. I got me looking after the finances for the family. So anything legal, finance, letters, all that stuff, I take care of that. When it comes to medical, my second oldest, John, would look after that. So we'll take the parents to checkups, to the hospital, everything like that, and he'll explain everything to the whole family.
Yeah.
Then
and he's the doctor as well, so he does everything.
Sure. Well, pretend doctor. He's like, he's a, what do you got? He got a PhD. He's not really technically a doctor, but
an academic.
He tells everyone that he's a doctor. Yeah. And then I got the oldest brother. Like, he's just a project manager. Doesn't really do anything else now. He's just like, he's done his job, like, so he's just the CEO now. So he just like pretends to do work, but he doesn't really. he directs us, apparently.
That's a wholesome dynamic, though.
Yeah.
All of us have grown up with brothers. For me, I've grown up with kind of like family, friends and cousins who are largely female. So it's been interesting to learn from them growing up with having like pseudo sisters. And one thing that they talk a lot about is different siblings getting different versions of their parents. So the eldest one in this example, you have to be home at 9 o'clock, and if it's 9:05, you're getting called. You're getting criticized about the way you're dressing or how you're spending your time, getting micromanaged. But the younger sibling, it's a completely different version of your parents that you're getting. Viv, how's your experience with that been? I know you mentioned a little bit before. Do you hold any resentment to your younger siblings because your parents, there's no manual with being a parent, but you're kind of the guinea pig, and it gets easier and easier for the siblings as it goes down?
Growing up, my parents were really, really strict with me. And so like to your thing about what time you come home, it was calls at 8 o'clock, and then I would get like 10 calls at a time if I wasn't home within half an hour or whatever. Whereas my brother now, like he can go out until 11 or 12 and there's no issues with it. My parents will go and pick him up from the train station and whatever. Same thing, how I dressed, what I was doing at school, who I was hanging out with, everything was very, very, very criticized. And then it got a little bit easier with my sister. She copped it a little bit, but not as much. my brother, like whatever he wants to do, he buys whatever he wants. Like it's actually insane the difference between my siblings.
I have a feeling it's because the parents just give up after that. They like their first child, they're really, really strict because they're like, oh man, I gotta raise this kid. Second child, they're like, oh, the first one turned out all right, so second one shouldn't. So we'll be a bit tough. The third one's like, I don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, also like gender dynamics as well. Like we had the 2 girls and then the 1 boy, and my parents probably thought, fuck, like it's so hard to raise the girls and we have to be really strict. But now, whatever, like the girls can look after the boy now,
So
which is true.
It's a good thing being the youngest, but I also see that they don't never take me serious as a result. So I remember I used to get angry about things and like, it was stupid stuff, but I'll get angry about it and I'll kick up a stink about it. And they just look at me and they'll laugh at me. They would like literally laugh at
you.
Yeah, they'll literally laugh at my face. And I was like, what the freak? I'm angry. I'm so And there was a time where like I got so angry and I was a kid at that. So I pretended to run away from home. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go.
How far did you get?
So I went into the garage. And I stopped.
You didn't even
You
went to the garage.
I stayed there for hours. I locked myself in the garage. And you know what's funny? Because like you lock the garage from the outside. Yeah, so that's how it normally worked.
Yeah.
Like there was no lock. You couldn't open the door from the inside. So I was sneaky. I ran in from the window. I opened the window and I jumped in from the window and then I locked the place up and I jumped in the window. So they couldn't find me for hours. So I was in the garage by myself, alone in the dark. And just to point out, when you're immigrant family and you have a garage, it's pretty disgusting there.
It's gross. Where all hoarding goes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's like probably a haunted haunted house inside. Yeah, it was disgusting and there was cockroaches everywhere. I'm pretty sure there was something dead in there, and I stayed there for hours in the dark. Yeah.
And then how did that all wrap up? Did you just give up?
Yeah, I gave up. I jumped outside the window after 3 hours. And I realised, they're never going to find me here. I don't even think they even found me at that point. They didn't get. Yeah.
Do you find that with you and Tony, Ken? Like, do your parents place more value on your opinion than Tony's?
We have a weird dynamic where we have a 4-year age gap, 2 boys. I definitely, as the oldest, I'm very lucky where my parents basically don't rely on me. Like my dad is 100% self-sufficient. Like anything from like phone calls to bills. And I think it's only recently where he's maybe needed a little bit more help because it's because his eyesight's not good and he can't see things properly. But most of the time he's fine. Unless it's like really something like technical or he doesn't know how to figure it out, but he always has like a crack first before he tries to figure it out. But what I have noticed is it's actually, I have a very strange one where it's flipped. Where I think in the early days when I was at home, they would very much so get me to help out. But as soon as I moved out really early, I moved out when I was like 19, 20. And as soon as I moved out, my parents literally didn't burden me. And actually that, bit like probably Davie, because I moved out, my brother became the guy that they went to for help. So now actually I find that Tony, for example, does more of the helping out domestically with like admin and things like that. And he's probably more acute because he lived at home for much longer.
But I actually feel like that doesn't make sense to me because you're so well organized and people come to you for things and like for your opinion and for you to like manage stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that habit and the skill set doesn't just come from work. It actually comes from like when you were young as well.
Yeah, like maybe it did when I was younger.
IGA.
Yeah. When I was at the supermarket, I was just free labor for ages. But I don't think my parents ever like. I don't think they ever really got me to do like a lot of life admin. It was pretty much like I had my own life and I was fine. I could just do what I wanted to do. So I was very very lucky. And my brother is someone who, because he's, I guess the way to describe it is like my brother's more, he's more technical, I guess, put it that way. Like he's very good with technology. He's very good with like hardware, that sort of stuff. My dad, where he has trouble is like computers or things like that. So he'll get him to do it because he knows he's better at it than I am. Mm-hmm. Also, I have a short fuse, so I get really like angry and frustrated. So he knows I have no patience, so he probably doesn't ask me anyway.
What about emotional things?
My parents don't really. Okay, my parents are very good at holding back emotional burden that they have, even to me. So I got glimmers of this sort of. Were you gonna say
I was
something?
gonna say that's all Asian parents, by the way. I think, they don't really show their emotions.
But I think you get signals and you get like...
I think they struggle to communicate how they're feeling, and then it manifests in different ways. And how it manifests is what the challenges kind of come from.
Exactly. So here's the thing. I never even got the manifestations. Or maybe I was just clueless. I never... Maybe I just didn't get the signals, right? So, for example, they went through the business, and the business was, I think when they were wrapping up, they went through a really bad business breakup. Never got the signal. I think I was maybe year 7, year 8, so I was still quite young, so maybe I didn't notice it. And then when they were going through selling the business, it was really difficult. They had a really difficult landlord. It was just like, I've never seen my parents so stressed out, but they still managed to hold it together. The one time though that I noticed it very viscerally was not to do with anything other than the fact my mum was going through menopause. Aww. I didn't know what menopause was. I think I was like 15, 16 at the time. So she had these like really massive like mood swings, and she'd go through like hot flushes. She went through depression. She went through like these really tough cycles. And I remember one time she basically like sat all the family down and she like looked at me and my brother, and she looked really tired, and she was like, I feel like I'm dying. Like she straight up told us. And my brother would have been 11, 12 at the time. So I'm not sure. I don't think we've even spoken about it now, like how he registered that period. But now I look back and I was like, man, like my mom had it really hard, and my dad was probably the guy who was like the punching bag. He was just dealing with it as well. So I think maybe it's us being boys being a little bit more like not emotionally sensitive to these things, that now in hindsight, when I think about it, I'm like, man, we did pick up on it, but we just didn't really do anything about it.
I don't think it's you being boys or anything. Like I have the same thing as well. I used to hang out with my mum a lot because I was the youngest.
Cute.
And my brothers were going to school or they had their own things going on. So I was with my mum. That she would lug me around everywhere. And then she used to make some of those comments back then. Like, she would say stuff like, she would make those small comments. She's like, oh, I really like this dress, but we can't afford it. Like, and then back then, like, it didn't register for me, like, what she was trying to say. And she's like, oh, and she would say stuff like, oh, life is very tough right now for us as a family. And I know Dad and me are fighting a lot. And she would tell me stuff. And she would talk to me about like, yeah, Dad and me fighting, Dad and her fighting, and how he really actually loves you, but he's just going through a lot of stress. And like at that time, I didn't really register much about it. But now when I look back and I was like, when I'm growing up now, trying to look for money, trying to run my own business, I'm like, man, the pressures that my parents faced. And when she was talking to me about it, man, a parent would not normally want to say that stuff to a young kid. But now that I could tell that she was in times of need and she was just trying to voice like how
ask for help, basically. Yeah.
Trying to get me to understand. Yeah. And you start registering it now, and you like look back and you're like, holy crap, like shit like that used to go through my parents used to go through, and I didn't do anything then. Like now I think about it and I was like, you don't even want to raise that to your parents and say, hey man, maybe I should have raised that to him and talked to him about it. And it's like, hey, I remember when you were going through a tough time. And yeah, but it's crazy, right? Like even I feel like you experience it, but I feel like everyone also experiences something like that.
Maybe it's just the way I'm programmed. I'm like optimistic, or I don't know, just very like ignorant about these sort of things, where I probably wasn't like as oblivious to the whole thing. But now thinking back, I was like, shit, I probably could have done things better. I could have said things better. And I remember like now, like me and my brother, because we live together, he lives at my place as well. We take the dog out for a walk. And we'll go out for walks, and this is like the only moments, because we're so busy, where we weren't particularly close growing up, but now we're closer because we work together. We we're older, like we all make good money, and so like I always say to him now, I was like, dude, like we have to remember like our parents, like because my dad went through the medical incident like in Japan, like he was, he almost basically freaking died, like, and so like that moment was like, to me, I was like, man, we have to like, number one, spend more time with our parents as siblings, and we have to do our parts. And he's really good because he'll go back and stay at their place. I think since I've moved out, maybe like lived at my mom's place, like my parents' place, like once or twice, just because, you have your own family and stuff. But I said to him, I was like, we need to look after our parents in our own ways. And so for him, he does a lot of the, maybe like the emotional role of going back and just he's like, hey, I'm visiting you, I'm seeing you, and that sort of stuff. And that's just because, he's got a bit more flexibility with his lifestyle. Whereas I think for me, I also think like playing the role of like being the oldest, but also having my own family and also having a son. So like basically giving a grandson, like maybe that's my way of thinking. I'm like, this is me like giving something to them because I know like earlier on we didn't want to have kids, and I know how bad my parents wanted like grandchildren. Yeah, they really wanted grandchildren, and I could see like how happy they were once it happened. So I was like, okay, that's the role maybe that I'm playing here as the eldest to be able to do that. But yeah, it's like very, very complicated, obviously, like everyone's. But he and I have this thing where it's like almost like an unspoken rule. I don't talk to Tony that much about our roles as brothers for the family, but we kind of get it. Like we know when we need to do our parts to help out.
Yeah. That's like one thing that I think I'm yearning for, which is because I played such a big parent role within my siblings, like the relationship, and I still am. I just want to be able to know or understand what it feels like to have a sibling relationship rather than a parent relationship. And so I'm trying to rebuild that, but trying to rebuild that while having the understanding that they're not quite there yet or we're not quite there yet is really tough to grapple with.
Look, as an oldest child who's now like, I've got 10 years on you, I would say that it's because, well, based on my experience is that you guys you need to wait for your siblings to get a bit older, like your sister now, to realize, I've got a role to play in the family. So leading up to that, you were the first adult. They were still kids. And then now they're crossing over the threshold of now becoming adults as well, that you can have these conversations with them as well. Because maybe your brother who's still, fairly young right now, you go talk to him and he's just whatever, he's just trying to figure himself out and enjoy life. That as someone here, it's like 34 and 30, we're like still trying to figure it out and go like, how are we supporting our parents as well? So I think that burden should theoretically hopefully get better, but you've got to have those conversations.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I think I just need to give it time, and I'm trying to be really, really patient with it. And so they're like, to your point, it's like, I know that, or I hope that in the future when they get older, and like you guys talking about your relationships with your siblings, that's where I'm like, I can kind of see a picture of what the future could look like. And I just need to slowly work towards that. But obviously when you're in the moment and stuff, it's quite hard to hope for it or feel it through, right? Like you guys would have gone through that, but now you're sitting in a place where you can look back and be like, yeah, we went through this and now we're in a good spot.
Yeah. But I have to admit, like, if you drag it out for too long and it impacts you too much, then it's probably not going to be a good thing for your relationship with your
of course,
siblings. So you got to be careful. Which is
why I'm trying to have the conversations now, but also with the understanding that they're still very young as individuals.
I have this crazy story about my older brother. He was like, I was young. I don't even know how old I was. I was like probably like 20 something, 21 or something like that. And I probably took something that I shouldn't have taken at nighttime by myself in my room. I can't probably say on this podcast.
What shape was it?
What shape was it? But I emotionally was, and physically and everything like that, was really messed up after taking it. So no one was awake at that time, 2 a.m. or something like that. And so I messaged my older brother because he was in Europe at that time. And at that time I thought he may have been awake, and he was. And he literally saw my message and I said, hey man, I'm really right now. I took something and I'm not feeling good right now. And then he called me up. He called me. I'm pretty sure he was working at the time. And he sat on the phone speaking to me for a good hour. Oh. I was talking gibberish. And like he crazily, like he just... as a oldest brother to look after him, look after me, even though he's all the way in Europe, like, man, it's crazy, right? Like to see.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice. And now looking back and reflecting, I was like, my God, what was I doing at that time? I was so messed up. And yeah, he just sat there for a whole hour, and I still remember him saying, "Hey, how are you feeling?" And after like talking to me for a good hour, he's like, so what did you end up taking? Like, like you're feeling better now. So, do you need to go to hospital?
I gotta go to work, man.
Yeah. So he literally full checked up with me, and then I'm pretty sure he messaged my second oldest brother as well. Man, it's crazy the burden that my the eldest brother or eldest sibling goes through. It's insane, right? Yeah, he spent a whole hour talking to me all the way on another country, and yeah, he didn't he made sure I was okay. He never told me off. As an Asian parent, I'm sure they will. But as the oldest sibling, they're so very calm when it comes to these things. Yeah.
They have to be as well.
That's like a privilege that not all of us who have siblings have, but many of us do, of like maybe we don't share the same interests or like aren't wired the same way, but we do have someone that we could call in the middle of the night, and they might grumble to help us, but they would help us because you do have a sibling and someone who understands and you've grown up with that has your back in that way.
Yeah, it's nice to see that. Like as a youngest sibling, to see that I have older brothers that I can actually call the second parent.
You have someone to lean on.
Yeah.
If I could just circle back to what you were saying about kind of rebuilding your relationship with your siblings. From my experience, it's really weird being a twin, and no one understands what it's like to be a twin unless you are a twin. So like growing up, you're always together and everyone looks at you as the same person. So you're expected to like the same things, feel the same things, have the same personality, but you don't. For us growing up, you have someone that's kind of growing up in the same environment, has the same life stages that you're working through. Values are generally the same, but the way we navigate things and our, I guess, outlook on the world is very different. So growing up, because I embraced more of the older sibling personality and he embraced more the younger sibling personality, I took on more responsibility in a household setting than he did. And I think because of that, I acted more like a parent than what he would have wanted. He would have wanted more of a partner, but he got more of a parent. And I resented him a little bit because I was taking on more than what he was. And it wasn't until I moved out 3-ish years ago where that relationship kind of elevated, where we started looking at each other as people and as friends more than as siblings or as family. I guess my experience is different because we're the same age. You might have a bit of catching up that you need to wait for, but moving out and getting that space was what helped our relationship in that way.
Me and my brother also had that problem, just to let you know. And for us to fix our relationship was we had a massive fight, a falling out, and then that changed us. We stopped talking to each other for weeks, and then we eventually started talking, and that changed the relationship and dynamic, just so you guys know. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, I think something drastic has to change in life for your relationship.
Maybe, yeah. For me, it was moving out. For you, it was having that fight.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'd love to move out, but it's obviously we've had conversations about what it's like in this economy. I did actually look this week just out of curiosity to see what the prices would be like. It's like
They're
a solid.
not better, are they?
It's like $800 for a
Goddamn.
two bedrooms apartment. It's just not possible at the moment unless you like moved out with another friend or 2 friends to like a house or something.
Sofa's very comfortable.
I call dibs on this sofa.
But then to the other point of like being an eldest daughter in an immigrant family, you can't actually move out, or there's lots of conversations around moving out when you're actually married or engaged or whatever. So there's a lot of like traditional or cultural nuances there when it comes to it. I also hold a lot of, to your point, I'm not sure if it's resentment. And maybe it's something that I'm working through to understand what that feels like. Yes, it could be resentment, but not towards the siblings and just in the situation, which is what you were saying about your brother, right? It's like you've lived this whole life for your family. And at what point do you just want to like unplug and live for yourself? And that's a really, really hard thing to grapple with when you've only been brought up a certain way or thought a certain
Especially
way.
as a migrant as well.
Exactly, yeah. And there's so many things to grapple with there. But yeah, I would love to move out. TBC.
We can just have a major fight with them and falling out and stop talking to each
I
other.
wouldn't want.
I've got one more like bigger question and then a couple of like rapid fire stuff, unless you guys have more stuff.
The only thing I was going to say, because like I was curious to get Noel's take, because I don't have, because you got a lot of cousins who live here, and you got some cousins here and there, like more extended family who live in Sydney, or not really?
I've got like 2 cousins here, but then everyone lives in Canada.
Yeah, and you know how you were saying like you don't have sisters, but they're by proxy like pseudo sisters as well. So I don't have any relatives here. Like it's just me and my brother. And I remember my mum used to say things like, "You only got each other, right? You should help each other." We didn't help each other a lot, you know, until more recently. So now being older. But the reason why I raised Noel is because you guys don't have any relatives here either, right?
I have cousins, but they're distant cousins, and we're not really close.
You don't see them, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So what I found was growing up, I treated family friends very much so, almost like relative, like family basically, because you see each other very, very often. And I was closer to them than say going back to China and like visiting cousins. And I'm like, I didn't even know who you are. And I remember when I was young, I was just like, I'm not close to you. I don't know who you are. Yeah, you say we're like, you know, cousins, but we never grew up together as well. Did you? Because I felt this way. I was like, I had very close family friends, But did you have that same situation?
Yeah, definitely. I think my family friends were pretty much my family. Like from both mom and I think they were the only people we had, and even though we weren't blood related, I felt like they were siblings. I grew up with, a family of like 4 girls, and I was the only boy. And then playing with them on weekends and stuff, I had to learn how to be like more sensitive and not just be like a dumb boy that just plays rough and didn't care about feelings and stuff like that. So I think I did. I think I was really privileged in that I had a lot of family friends and with kids. Yeah.
One of them? Out of curiosity.
He can't say.
He did it.
They're all younger siblings to me. So yeah, I definitely had that. And then, I have my extended Italian family, and there was a bunch of cousins there. And
those families are huge,
yeah,
man.
they're huge. So I was always around other kids, even though I wasn't related to them. So I did get to have that kind of proxy sibling or, cousin experience.
So they felt like siblings.
Definitely, yeah.
Because the question I have is just, did it feel lonely? And before you answer that, the reason why I say that is also because my brother we got a 4-year age gap. And he lived he almost lived like a completely different life to me, even though we lived in the same household. So he went to a different school. He was into different things. We never crossed over in any activities whatsoever. I almost felt like an only child, very much so growing up, like during high school. And so a lot of the relationships were just with like mates from school or like family friends, and that sort of stuff. And just not even like having cousins and that sort of stuff. I was like, damn, you wished you had that, for example. But yeah, did you ever feel that was the case?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt lonely when I didn't have people around, for sure. But I think I had a healthy balance of having my own time to explore my own hobbies and interests, as well as when people were around and free on a weekend or were over. I made the most of that time as well. So
did you spend more time with them? Did you go over their house or did they come to you? A
bit of both. Yeah, bit of both.
Because I have a cousin that he isn't an only child, but he was the very young compared to his older sisters and brother. I don't know the age gap, but it's pretty big. I can't remember. Probably 10 plus years.
I think it's 10 plus. Yeah.
So he was pretty much only child, and he used to come over every single weekend. I used to get so annoyed about it. I was like, why is this guy over? This is a bloody nuisance. Yeah. But he always got the nice PlayStations and all that stuff. He'll bring all that stuff because he was just young.
He had something to offer.
Yeah.
So
he'll bring all that, and I used to get to play with it. But yeah, I was like, man, at first I used to find it very annoying, and eventually after a while, I just felt like he was my younger brother that I never had.
Just because you said PlayStation, this brought up a memory. Did your older siblings do a thing where you'd be like, oh, I want to play with you, but they'd give you a controller and not plug it in? Davie, you're playing. And you're getting excited and stuff, but...
Yeah, my older brother used to play pranks on us all the time. So he used to control us and give us stupid games for his own benefit or for his own fun and joke. So he'll laugh at us. But eventually he might go too far, and then we cry, and then he realizes, oh shit,
are we get in trouble?
Yeah, because if he hurts us or anything like that, he's straight away going to be the one blamed. So yeah, he does that all the time, but probably not the Game Boy and controller stuff, because honestly, I'm not that dumb. But yeah,
I feel like with our generation, if our siblings are dickheads, we'd be like, you're a dickhead, and then give space and distance from them. Whereas with our parents and grandparents' generation, they'll have siblings who are the worst people and can get away with murder, but they'll always make excuses. Be like, oh, poor thing, he's the youngest child, or oh, poor thing, he's an older brother, I need to respect him, and things like that. And do you guys find that with your parents or people in your family? They make excuses for their siblings that we wouldn't put up with?
I think it's the opposite for me. So my parents are so over it, so they actually probably don't even talk to their siblings as much. But I think it's because of the things they went through war and migrating over to Australia. And so they went through, their relationship took a massive toll. So we used to hang out as a family all the time during the special events, but now they don't do it anymore because they have so much issues between their family. And then they say, don't talk to this uncle, don't talk to this auntie, because of these reasons. Really? And then I'm like, well, if you show that to me, I'm always against it. I was like, if you show that relationship with your siblings like that, then how am I going to treat my sibling? So and then my brother's like, don't say that, man. You don't know what they've been through. So You shouldn't say things like that. So we're like the complete opposite.
I think the people, I guess, I'm thinking of, it's kind of projecting to what you guys were talking about earlier about no matter what happens in life, like your siblings is all you have, like their family at the end of the day, and your responsibility and a duty to them. So no matter what they do, there's a sense of like you should still have their back. But I guess
I get told that all the time when I was growing up.
But do you see that with your, I guess, parents, grandparents, that they put up with behavior with their siblings that you wouldn't put up with?
I probably didn't experience it because being the only family here. But my mom's the oldest daughter of a family of 9 siblings.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's like massive family. But I could see youngest or younger child tendencies with my mom because she would have like a very, how do I describe, like a personality wise, she had like, I get my short fuse from my mom because she just wouldn't put up with it. And she likes to just yell because she has to get the attention. I'm assuming like when she was younger, she definitely has that. Whereas my dad's the oldest of 3. And my dad came from like extreme poverty, like couldn't even afford shoes to go to school, like walk bare feet to school. So my dad is like the opposite, where he's like very stoic and he just like internalizes everything and just deals with it as well. And my brother gets his personality from him. So because you've seen Tony, he's like super chill. Even like when we have moments of crisis in business, I'm almost like a little bit confused. I'm like, dude, should I be worried that you're not that worried, or should I be worried because it's that bad that you're like, it's over?
You can tell when Tony's stressed out, or maybe like I see a different side of Tony because I'm not
No,
siblings
I
with
see
him.
it. I see it, but he still doesn't like.
He doesn't outwardly
No, he
show
doesn't
it.
outwardly show it. He just like internalizes it, and yeah, he just.
Guy's a man of no emotion.
Yeah, he's a Terminator basically. Anyway, my point is that yeah, with the parents, I don't see my parents necessarily say that, and it's actually funny right now because my mum's got her 2 older sisters in Australia right now.
I thought she was the oldest.
No, she's the youngest.
Oh, youngest.
Yeah, she's the youngest. And so she's got her 2 older sisters right now. And I'm seeing her really like loving life right now because she hasn't been together with them in Australia. She's been back to China with them, but she's like, this is her backyard now. And she's like taking them around and she's like having a great time, but she's the younger sister of the lot. And so, yeah, they're like having really like fun dynamics right now, which they should have probably had for a long, long time. Yeah.
I think for my parents, they've done a good job in, if they have conflict, it's between the parents and they will continue to speak to them. But when it comes to the kids, they want us to have our own relationships and make our own decisions with the adults that might not have a lot of good relationships. That reminded me what you were saying about your mum and having her sisters here. My mum is the youngest of, I can't remember, 4 or 5. And because she's physically removed from all of them, so all of her siblings live in Canada, whereas she's alone here in Australia, she doesn't get into the arguments with them. I know there's a bit of drama there, but I guess she's always wanted to have like a sibling relationship and like everyone to be really like cozy and, you know, happy together. So she went to Canada, I think this year, and it was the first time in maybe almost 10 years that she's actually spent time with her siblings again. And when they sent back the photos and everything, I've never seen my mum so happy and so relaxed.
That's nice.
And she just got to be with her mum, her siblings, like her sisters and her brother, and just with family, and just got to be a sister for once.
Rather than a mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
crazy.
amongst all the drama and stuff that we all know, that like she just puts that aside because she just wants the relationship.
The drama's pretty intense for
Yeah.
Asian families. I find.
Very, very
Yeah.
intense.
I'm surprised that there isn't more Asian parents that don't actually like their siblings anymore. Like our family's pretty dysfunctional. But whereas the younger generation are like we still care about each other, we still want to hang out and stuff like that. But it's so awkward. Like we have this dynamic that is really awkward. It's like, we're gonna hang out. Should we invite the
Yeah.
should we invite the parents? Like it's this weird dynamic that we
Because
have.
you have a different relationship to the adults to what the adults have with the adults, right?
Yeah. They when we do invite one of them or 2 of them, they just talk shit about the other one, and we're like, man.
Well, that's really really different because I have the same thing. My parents shield that stuff away from me and my brother. We don't find out about bad relationships between each other ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we see it completely.
I think it's also a big family thing though, because it's the same thing with my mom. And like your parents are from a big family, right? My mom had like 12 siblings, so they're always like fighting, and it's always like every time it feels like a civil war, and she's always on the phone with them, and I'm like, oh, so we don't like this uncle?
Yeah, right? Am I supposed to?
Yeah, okay. And then like a month later, I'm like, oh, cool, I'm cool with this uncle again. Yeah, I can go back to
So
this
much to
uncle
keep
now.
up with though,
It's
hey?
so hard, man. Like it's, but I think that's just a phase. Like I've seen it for so long now, where it's like, this group kind of click together, and then don't like this group, and then they change sides, and I'm just like, I think that's just,
They should film that stuff and turn it into a reality TV show.
it's a whole drama, man. But
I'd be so interested to watch it. By the way.
I think that's just part of it, and it's kind of funny to watch because they're all like, old. They're all like, in retirement age. They're all adults that have their own lives, but they still kind of fight like they're children. And I think the relationships don't change. And yeah, it's funny, but it's cool. I think at the end of the day, it's all love though. Like deep down, they all love each other, but they're just are too proud to like admit they're wrong or like, say sorry first. And there's just things that they need to work out basically.
To wrap up, what I thought would be fun to do is go through the list of what a stereotype is for the eldest child, middle child, and youngest child, and see if you guys agree that it fits everyone's personality. So if you start with the eldest child, does everything I'm about to list fit Viv and Can's personality? People pleasers.
Yes.
Super responsible.
Yes.
Type A personality, so they're super organized and need things to go to plan.
Yeah, I would say so.
Overachievers.
Yep.
Yeah, they try to be.
Savage.
Have to go through hell for the next siblings to have it easier.
Apparently
yes.
Can doesn't do anything, so he never went for everything.
Yes for Viv.
This guy. This was a setup.
In their families, their opinions matter the most.
Yeah, I think so. Right? I could be wrong. I've never been your brother or sibling, but I think your opinions probably matter.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, definitely.
For the middle child, Viv, you can answer for your sister. The forgotten one. And you can answer for John as well.
No, he's 100% the forgotten one. I think like he took a while for my parents to love him. Like,
You never go back to that story, by the way. Why was that?
I don't know. I just felt like John, me and Nung used to get all the attention, and then so John, he's actually the best personality in the relationship. Like, as in, like, he's calm,
Super patient.
He really gives a about us as a family, but it took a while for my parents to realize that he is actually the favorite one. And it took us a very long time to kind of like realize that, you know what, like John is actually a really good guy. Like it took that's what I feel like the middle child takes so much shit and then ends up becoming like the favorite person, favorite child. And I don't know if that dynamic is actually
Reiko, the forgotten one in your family?
She probably feels that way.
just let her know that she'll probably become the favorite child one day.
She probably is. I reckon
You
she will be.
Yeah, that's what I actually think happens in middle child.
Peacemakers?
Hard to say.
Nah, for me, my brother, yeah, he is the middle child.
And independent.
Yes.
Yeah, he's independent.
And as a younger child, everyone voting if this applies to Davie. Happy-go-lucky, go with the flow.
Yes.
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 Social, lighthearted, and fun.
Yes.
Yes.
He takes a lot of things.
More rebellious.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, hang on. Did you say more rebellious?
Remember that story about calling
the
my
garage.
brother?
Yeah.
Garage and calling my brother at the middle of the night.
Yeah, true.
Sets clear boundaries for themselves.
Yes.
Oh.
Sort of.
No.
I don't think they have boundaries.
No, I don't think so.
And their opinion matters the least, or is considered the least.
It's probably switched now.
Yeah, it probably started off
It
that
switched
way.
a lot, yeah. But before back then, yeah, 100%.
My last question is to Noel. Having heard what everyone here is like as siblings, if you had to adopt a sibling, who are you taking?
Oh, man. Rough question.
None of us.
Oh, so many great choices.
You enjoy being an only child though, hey?
Probably Davie.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because he's the richest.
Because then if I had to call him after a bad trip, he'd understand.
I'm deeply honored, by the way. What else do you like? Tell me more.
That'll be it. That's the memories.
Damn it. Fuck that. I don't get that love with Shirley.
No, I think it would just be fun. I think Davie would be the fun older brother to hang out with. Like, it would just be like a mate. You know? Yeah.
I'm also the bad influence. Well, me and Noel used to hang out together a lot because he dated my cousin, yeah. And then, like, yeah, we used to be cool.
Yeah,
like,
man.
We used to be cool. We used to do cool
A long
stuff.
time ago.
Yeah, we used to do cool stuff together. It was so fun. I get it, man.
We're cool.
More of that.
Lol.
That was a fun episode. I don't know about you, but it's really cold in here. But I feel super warm in my LA hoodie.
That's a nice
in the
segue,
middle of
man.
winter. Where could people cop one if they wanted to get some of these fresh hoodies?
So, cop our merch at levelasianpod.com.
No, levelasianpodcast.com, man.
Levelasianpodcast.com/store.
We'll put the link in the description because we'll probably confuse a lot of people saying this.
We're not very good at selling stuff,
This is
so
like the Kanye Super
Please
Bowl.
like, comment, subscribe. We are also on YouTube. See you next time.
Thanks for
guys.
listening.
guys.
Thanks so much for tuning in. A lot of work and effort goes into Level Asian with a whole team behind the scenes. While we aren't looking for anyone to pay for this content, what helps the podcast grow, reach more people, and benefit more Asians around the world is if you could leave a 5-star review if you're on Spotify, Apple, Google, or any other audio platforms. And leave us a like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Catch you on the next episode.